Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. There should be no gremlins in the system tonight. Tonight is going to be seamless, streamless, streaming, anything that begins with an S show. Myself and Matt, David might be joining us at some point tonight if he can find a device that works. But Matt, good evening. Are you well? I know you can't see anything other than yourself again.
I'm great, and looking at myself doesn't make me feel any worse. I'm quite happy with that, and I'm looking forward to seamless, streamless steaming.
Steam, yeah, and I think you can't get better, a better way of putting it than that, really, can you? It looks we've got people watching tonight as well, so there's a good sign. We've got people actually tuning in. So Facebook hasn't sort of kicked us off just yet. Lots to go through as always tonight. We've even got some comments about things that happened in the game. We're going to be previewing the St Helens game, and like every week with Wigan, there's lots of things to talk about off the field. There's never ever a quiet week with Wigan, and I'm sure Jackson Hastings, George Williams, Dan Sarginson, and Adrian Lamb, who we're going to be talking about later on, will be watching, as we've just discussed, Matt. We're adamant that they will be watching at some point. Big fans of Matt's. They followed him right from his early days, really. They turned up to your book signings, didn't they? Particularly Jackson Hastings. You were one of the main reasons he signed, apparently.
I've heard that rumour. I started it.
Right, let's get into the boring stuff. Let's talk about a 50-point victory last week that was predicted on this show. Can we point that out early on?
You did well there. You did well.
I did very well.
Predicting.
Yeah, even the clock's right twice a day, as they say. Wigan 52, Hull KR 10. We were both at the game. We were both sat near Sean Wayne. You were throwing stuff and trying to get it into his drink. Your thoughts on the game? Would you say that's the best performance of the season so far?
Yeah, that's what. Obviously, it is. It was amazing, wasn't it? You don't know how much of that is down to the opposition, do you? But it was a great game to go to, and that was the first game I've been to for quite a while. So yeah, I think I have been the missing ingredient.
Well, either you or me. So yeah, we'll have to, I don't know how we're going to decide that, really. We're going to have.
I'm not going on Friday.
Okay, well, neither am I. That puts that again makes it difficult. But I remember the Catalans game earlier on in the season at home as well, where we also put in an impressive performance against that. It felt a little bit like that, and then the wheels fell off against after the Catalans game a little bit. But we've talked about this week after week after week of is Adrian Lamb finding his perfect combination, his team, but I don't think he's actually found a system that he uses every single week in terms of he doesn't seem to bring people on at the same time. He holds Samet back, he brings him on. There's no defined formula that perhaps we're expected or we've been expecting over the past few years with Sean Wayne. Do you think that's a case of Adrian Lamb just plays what's in front of him and treats every game as it comes?
It could be. It could be that could be his style, this whole variety, this mixture. This lamb casserole, maybe that is what he's bringing to the club.
The lamb casserole, I like it. Yeah. Have you got a list of all the things that you're going to use tonight in lamb casserole? Your bingo cards, you can tick off lamb
just
casserole.
Just crossing that one off now.
We do discuss them before we go on air. Who stood out for you on Friday night? For me, one of the big things that I was impressed with, obviously George Williams had another great game. I think everything that Wigan did well tended to go through him. Joe Bullock off the bench looked fitter, looked fresher. We held him back, and then he had that really big impact where I think he did that break, got a bit cocky, and then threw the dummy and landed straight into Adam Quinlan, I think it was, when he had George Williams on his inside. Liam Farrell seems to be back to his best. Yeah. Who stood out for you? Probably those players that I've just stolen from you.
Yeah. Cheers for that. Yeah, definitely Farrell. I thought Farrell was awesome. And it's great to see him back to his best. I thought Hardacre had a good game too. And like you say, Williams. Oh God, Williams. We're going to miss him next year.
We are, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. One person that always seems to get overlooked though when he plays well, and when he plays well, I said. Liam Marshall scores a hat trick, and nobody really mentions the fact that he scored a hat trick. I think people are more probably interested about the fact that Liam Farrell scored those 2 tries, or the Joe Bullock run like we've spoken about. But how much I've criticised Liam Marshall quite a bit in the past about his defensive attributes, and perhaps he's not been tested against Hull KR as much. But how much have you seen him improve over the past couple of years? And he's our number 1 winger due to injuries at the minute, and his strike rate at the minute is absolutely incredible.
He's the real deal now, isn't he? He seems to have ironed out those kind of little defensive lapses, and I think part that you say we don't mention him, but part of the thing is I think we've just become accustomed to him scoring.
Yeah.
And so when he goes and scores a hat trick, we think, well, yeah, that was always going to happen. Big deal.
Yeah, I think that is the thing, isn't it? He's just such a good finisher that when he scores those types of tries, or he scores a hat trick, it's just, well, that's what he brings to the team. And perhaps that gets, if this was Tom Davies scoring a hat trick, for example, I think that's probably one of the first things that we'd be talking about Tom Davies, because he has other attributes. But yeah, I think that's one of the big things, isn't it, with Liam Marshall? But how blessed we are in the winger department. And obviously we've got Joe Bullock, who can play on the wing if we ever do get that shot. What did you think of Hull KR? We sort of built them up last week about Joel Tompkins' return, and obviously they come off a big victory against Hull FC. Do you think they just threw the towel in after 30 minutes or so?
Yeah, if I've got one concern, that is it. I'm not sure how much they were really committed throughout that game. They just seemed a bit deflated. Maybe because they've had a few big games on the bounce, haven't they? And that's the one reason I'm not getting too carried away. I just feel maybe they weren't the test that we thought they might be.
Yeah, I think you're probably absolutely right. I mean, I think somebody's put on here that our middles ran the game for me, and I think they did. But I think when you look at our pack and you compare that to the St. Helens pack, who we're going to come up against on Friday night, that's going to be a massive challenge. That's going to be a massive step up for them, particularly the young lads, like we'll talk about in just a second. So a big week off the field. We'll preview the St. Helens game in a few moments' time. But I mean, where do we start with this sort of the thing that I like about this
Monday night is where we start.
Well, the thing that I like about Monday night was, if you remember earlier on in the season when we had the flurry of announcements, we've always discussed about how Wigan fans like an announcement being announced, and then they get criticised for that announcement being announced because they've announced an announcement, and they did that for their last one, saying they were ticking down with some clock or something like that. Not this week. They just went in. Somebody was bored on Monday night, and they just got hold of the scheduled tweets that were for later on in the week. I thought, let's see if anybody's watching. And they were just pressing send, send, send. So one of the first things that came out, I guess one of the best places to start, was Adrian Lamb. Signed for 2020, 1-year deal. That seems to be, as Wigan fans, as we've discussed quite often, Matt, is what's the negative about this announcement? What is the negative that we can look at? And that seems to be it. 1-year deal. What are your thoughts on that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Sean Wayne on a kind of rolling 1-year deal programme?
I think so, yeah. He seemed to be, every time he won a trophy, then he was rewarded with another contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way Lenigan works. Maybe that was something that Sean Edwards took issue with. I don't know. Just speculation, that, isn't it? But we've got him for a year. Rejoice. I personally would have liked to have seen him get a 2 or 3 year deal. I can well understand it if, for family reasons, he disappears back down to Australia at the end of that year. Well, I guess, yeah. But at least we've got some security going into next season, and at least there won't be any shocks if he doesn't sign beyond 1 year. I'm sure the club will have it in hand, but let's just hope he does.
Are we not just kicking this issue down the road for another 12 months? Or we talked about, there was that uncertainty with the team a few months ago with all the Sean Edwards debacle, and then all of a sudden, if we're not doing too well at Easter time again next year, is it then the question mark over, well, is Adrian Lamb staying on? We don't want him to stay on. Do you think that this could just be delaying the inevitable of what will happen next year because it's only a 1-year deal?
Do you honestly think that they don't know whether he's going to stay on beyond that 1 year?
Yes, this is Wigan. Yes. Why would you be
You see,
shocked with
I'm
that?
tempted to think my gut feeling is that he's gone after another year, which disappoints me. In which case they've got the time to look for somebody else. But you make a valid point and a good point. Yeah, it could be like a Tory leadership election, couldn't it? It could just run and run.
Is that still going on? Is it?
Apparently so. Yeah,
We sorted Brexit out though, so that's fine. Or is that still going on?
that's definitely going on.
Okay. One of the things that I noticed with Adrian Lamb, the comments that he's actually made in his uh, press conference. That's what they call them nowadays, isn't it? Press conferences. When he was talking about his 1 year deal, is I think he feels like it suits both parties. Is yes, the family element of it is obviously going to be a big part. Obviously, his kids just broken into the Roosters first team. His wife's down under, so perhaps overcommitting to that 2-3 year period. That 2-3 year period may be an issue for him. But it adds security for another year. That's my only concern, though, is are we just delaying the inevitable? Are we going to be having the same conversations that we had after Easter time when things weren't perhaps going too well about security for players and things like that? So I'm delighted to see Adrian Lamb sign. I would have liked to, as many fans would be, I think, for him to have signed longer, but as we've seen with the people like Michael Maguire in the past, what they signed for and the period of time that they signed for, when the NRL come around and they want them as a head coach, it doesn't mean too much, does it? It means that you probably get compensation as a club for Wigan for that. So Adrian Lamb was one of the first ones. The announcement after that was one that I guess naturally gets overlooked because perhaps of his status as a player, but one that I would like to talk about in a bit of depth is Dan Sarginson, because I think we've talked about Dan Sarginson quite a lot on this show and the difficulty particularly that he went through last year with the death of his brother and the way that he responded to that and the way that the players got themselves around physically around Dan Sarginson. Before that, I think it was a Wakefield game last year. I think Dan Sarginson gets a lot of stick, and I think he's been a player that has done a lot for Wigan in the period that he's been in. Let's not forget he had an assist for that winning try in 2016 in the grand final. I think his time at Wigan naturally perhaps has come to an end at the end of 2019, and probably it's a good time for all parties to move on. But your thoughts on Sarginson moving on, Matt?
Well, I've always liked Sarginson. I was one of the few people who, when we re-signed him, I was made up because I think he's actually a very, very good player. And I think he's the sort of player that when we see him play in another team, we'll think, oh, God, yeah, he is good, isn't he? Because he is. And like you say, maybe the time has come for him to move on. But I wish we could have found a way of keeping him.
Yeah, you can't just keep people because you like them, Matt. Unfortunately, I know that's the way that life would work in your ideal world, in Happy Land. No, you know where I'm going with that. But that is life, I guess, isn't it? And he moves on. Salford is perhaps the place that he's going to be. And in Salford, Salford have signed a very good player, the best fullback in the world, according to Adrian Lamb. So that's some signing for Salford, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. I mean, to get the best fullback in the world is quite an accolade for them.
I'm just going to put this comment on here from Brandon. Hi, spoke to you last week on Friday last week, Sean. How are you? Very good, Brandon. Thank you for coming speaking to me. I'm glad you didn't get the opportunity to speak to Matt at various points on Friday night. Just putting that out there. The other announcement that then followed that was George Williams, the worst kept secret in rugby league, probably the worst kept secret after John Bateman going to Canberra. We've known about it forever, but it's confirmed now. Your reaction to that, Matt?
Yeah. Again, I'd rather he was staying, but he's not, and I hope he proves a lot of doubters wrong and does really well at the Canberra Warriors. I think he's got everything about him to really kick on. And the positive thing is, what's this England team going to look like in a couple of years?
They'll be playing in green, you know that much.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I guess, from the from the deal, the George Williams deal, the thing that Ian Lenigan likes to get into most contracts, apart from the Ryan Sutton one apparently, and not quite in the John Bateman one, is first refusal should he come back to Super League. I think that's less likely with him going to a club like Cambrian, where he's got friends already there, already established, which means you never know with individual cases, but obviously homesickness might not be such a big issue like it has been in the past with the likes of Lee Mossop. Remember Lee Mossop? He went out there apparently. Sam Tompkins, people like that. Yeah, and Gareth Hock signed as well, didn't he? But then decided that he didn't want to go or wasn't allowed into Australia. Well, it's funny that because Australia used to be the place for convicts, but never mind.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, George Williams confirmed. So George Williams leaves as Wigan's marquee player. Off he goes, and then we've replaced him with a new marquee player. We've got Jackson Hastings. We've spoken about it. We didn't want to talk about it too much because it wasn't confirmed. It's confirmed now, Matt. Thoughts on seeing Jackson Hastings in Cherry and White next year?
That's going to be great. I think he's pretty much the only obvious replacement for Williams. I think he, as well as his kind of guile and his haircut, he's going to bring a lot to the team. I can't wait to see who he's paired up with at halfback.
I'm sure every Wigan fan thinks like that because there's so many different options, isn't there? Do we go with? Do we sign somebody else to partner him? Do we? Jared Sammett's obviously there. Is Thomas Lulawai staying on? Harry Smith coming through the system, or do we just throw Sean O'Loughlin in there? Who knows? But the thing that I'm really looking forward to, apart from seeing Jackson Hastings dominate and control the Wigan team, because I think that was key in one of the announcements, was I think Chris Radlinski mentioned about Jackson Hastings' leadership, and I think that's something that Wigan do miss below that Sean O'Loughlin, Thomas Lulawai sort of age range, is who are the next leaders in the team. And George Williams has never been that vocal leader. I think he got a bit of criticism from Wayne Bennett about that, and that's why he wasn't in the England team during the World Cup for a period of it. But Jackson Hastings, for me, is vocal, perhaps too vocal at times. But at least we've got a leader in that regards coming into the team. The other thing that I'm looking forward to seeing Jackson Hastings, there's a dog barking at me. It is my dog, I think, but it's on the other side of it's on the other side of glass, so it's not quite attacking me, so it's all right. We obviously with Jackson Hastings. The other thing that I'm looking forward to seeing is what Jackson Hastings brings off the field as well. His social media for Salford, his work in the community has been second to none, and I think that will only get increase at a club like Wigan, with no disrespect to Salford. So I can't wait to see him there with Jared Sammett, with Woods, whoever it might be next year. It's an exciting time, but that's next year. Friday, Matt, St Helens, another game against St Helens. We haven't beaten them yet this year. How do you? Let's talk about the big picture first of all. How do you see the game going? Do we have a chance against the runaway league leaders?
I can't see us winning it, to be honest.
Matt,
and I can't see it happening. I think if we had a full squad to choose from, we would have a chance, definitely. But I'll tell you something. What it will do is this will be the real test. This with the watermark. This will show us exactly where Wigan are. Because if we get absolutely thumped by them, then we'll know that Hull KR was a blip, a bit like Catalan earlier in the season. If we can hold them kind of that close and put on the style a bit and give them a bit of a shock, then I think the next time we meet them, we will have enough confidence.
I think I've got a few concerns about Friday night. One is our pack. I think we're light in the pack, and I don't think we were tested against Hull KR. And I think against St Helens pack, I think that's always been the place where we've managed to sort of dominate St Helens over the past however many years. But I think St Helens have obviously got the advantage there at this moment in time in the season. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity for the likes of Morgan Smithies, Ollie Partington, two players will never back down from any challenge that's thrown at them, no matter how big they are. They will always, I think, relish that, and I think they will relish that on Friday night. And I'm looking forward to not seeing it because it's not on telly, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on against that. Yeah, no Flower, no Club, no Lachlan, no Greenwood. That's sounds like the start of a very good song, but that is the reality of Wigan's task on Friday night. But what a challenge that is! The thing that also concerns me about Friday night is we've got to get. James says we have a chance. A defeat is not the end of the world. Yeah, I don't think a defeat is the end of the world, but I do think we need to get a win against St Helens under our belt, just in case we do have to play them in the grand final. I mean, naturally they'll probably fall at the semi-final stage because it's St Helens. But if we do have to play them in the playoffs, I think we need that victory under our belts. I think going into that game, if we do play them later on in the season with 3 defeats, mentally could be a bit of a challenge.
I'm not sure we actually need to beat them. I think in this game on Friday, we've just got to come very close. We've just got to hold them.
Moral victory.
Yeah, because I mean, like you've pointed out that that we're very light in the forwards. That's what we're lacking as much as anything is confidence, and holding them, that close, within a few points would give us a confidence. And it would put that question mark in the minds of the St Helens squad, wasn't it? That they would think, maybe when Wigan get their players back, and that is all we need.
Kieran Smith says here, young Wigan teams have done it in the past. That's the exciting thing I think about Friday night is there is that history, isn't there, of Wigan youngsters turning it on against St Helens. That 2003 derby on Good Friday will always be etched in memory of players that never played again. Was it John Thingy Whittle or whatever his name was, who sort of became a hero back then. But we're not talking about we're not giving people the debut and throwing them in and hoping that things stick. This is still a decent Wigan team, and it's a decent Wigan team that's on a good run. So I think it will be an acid test to see where this Wigan team is at this moment in time, though. Has it been a bit of a false dawn to get to where we are? The other thing that it does, though, a win on Friday night, perhaps can take us a little bit clearer of that battle that's appearing with Castleford and Catalans for those 4th and 5th spots. But it's still a long season, still a long way to go. I would just like to see us get a victory under our belts against St Helens, and likewise Warrington. I think we need to have beaten everybody at some point during the season just for that confidence. But yeah, you can't win them all. It'd be nice to win this. For me, this feels very much like that Super 8s game last year, if you remember. Sean Wayne's last game at the Totally Wicked Stadium in the Super 8s, where St Helens had run away with it. Do you remember when Ben Barber did his turnstile impression when Gildart was running at him? Yeah. And I feel like this could be that moment. It's a bit earlier in the season. That could be, who knows, Lachlan Coote could be the turnstile. But yeah, who knows? Lots of comments coming through. I think lots and lots of people. Let's talk about. We've mentioned these 2 people, but Ollie Partington and Morgan Smithies. Representing Wigan against St Helens. Partington's on a bit of a try-scoring run. I think he scored 2 in his last 3 games. But how impressed have you been with them? And obviously, they were both rewarded with a new contract a few weeks ago.
Yeah, very. I believe that children are the future, and they are going to be the foundation, aren't they? It's great to see.
I've just put a comment on there about let Morgan Smith is Louis Posh Boy. Fact that I love the fact that because he has a southern accent, Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook is deemed posh. Like Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook, that accent, although it's a southern accent, I don't think is a particularly posh one. But I love that.
I wouldn't have said.
I love that.
Anything below Birmingham's just posh.
Just posh. Yeah, that's my favourite comment of the night so far. But yeah, so how do you see it going? You obviously you're not optimistic. You've said that you think that St Helens will probably win, but you hope it's a close game. So give me a score prediction, Matt.
I think it's going to be. My heart would like it to be Wigan 52, Saints 10. I suspect it's going to be more like St Helens 18, Wigan 12. I'd be happy with that.
Okay, you'd be happy with a Wigan defeat? Come on. Yeah, so Tim
I'd be
says
comfortable with it. I'd be
this is
comfortable with it.
sorry. This comment as well is because it's Louis McCarthy Scarsburg and because he's from down south, it's posh. But it's not just that; it's the fact that he has a double-barreled name. His name is too long, so that's what makes him posh. I love this. Spencer's prediction is St Helens 1, Wigan 21. Sounds like a cracking game. That Kieran says 24-22 to Wigan. I think Wigan will do it. And I'm I got last week massively correct. I've got to say. So
Happy to go with that.
I am the oracle. So I'm going. Yeah, somebody's put on here. Stephen's put on Golden Point. We've not had one of them for a while. Golden Point, and the reason what makes me think the Golden Point is it's agreed between the teams. Right, we're going to go to Golden Point just to show Sky that they should have picked this. And the Leeds Hull KR game will be a runaway 30-0 something to Leeds, boring after 30 minutes. This will be one hell of a game. This will be better than the Origin today. It'll go to Golden Point, and then basically the teams have agreed whoever wins in Golden Point wins, whatever it is from there. So I'm going to go, so Stephen's gone 15-14 to Saints. I'm going to go 11-10 to Wigan. Sam Powell drop goal again to win the game.
Sam Powell's been impressive, hasn't he?
Yeah, let's talk about Sam Powell. Let's talk about Sam Powell.
Definitely.
Talk to me about Sam Powell, Matt.
The way he's teasing the opposition line, like flirting with them. I'm loving watching that.
I think one thing that's really developed in his game is the element that's always been thrown criticism at Wigan's dummy half over the past few years is the ability to actually run from it. And all of a sudden, it's almost like somebody's had a word with him and said, "Do you know how you can make quick meters here? When that defender's on the floor, he can't tackle you, or when that defender's offside, they can't touch you, or we get a penalty." But I'd love to know whether that's something that somebody's had a quiet word with him, somebody, he's done some training with somebody in particular, or whether he's just decided, look, I need to develop my game here. I need to become better in this position. And I was thinking about it last week. I think that Castleford game at home where he scored the try, pretty much, it was a low-scoring, horrible game after Easter. He pretty much won us that game. The whole KR game, he got his 40-20 and he got the one-pointer. And I'm sure there's another game where he's practically won us points. And I think it was about a 6-point swing that was basically, let's call him the Sam Powell 6 points. That's what I'm going to start. And I think he
Powell 6 points.
Yeah, SPSP. Mm-hmm. He deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think people are starting to notice him a little bit. Like Spencer says, Sam Powell in capital letters and loud voices. So Matt Pryor, here we go. A bit of insight from Matt Pryor. Says Lamb says that Sam Powell's been working with John Winder. So there you go. Nobody knows what John Winder's been doing for the past 10 years. Biggest question in Wigan. That's what he's been doing. He's been teaching Sam Powell how to run from dummy half. Keep your score predictions coming through. I think we've pretty much touched on every single subject that happened at Wigan during the week, I think, other than the fan zone. Now, the fan zone, Matt, was good. The fan village was good. The downsides of the fan village was my laptop was stolen out of my car.
No.
Genuinely, that was stolen off in the Robin Park car park. It was stolen out of my car.
Did you not lock it?
I didn't lock my car, apparently. I walked away from the car. It normally locks itself automatically. Obviously hasn't. Gone back into the car. Haven't even noticed for a couple of days because I wasn't using it. The dash cam's gone. The laptop's gone. So apart from that, not a good start for the fan village. But the fan village itself was good. I think it's getting better and better and better. I know you couldn't get there because of your train. You were rushing to get there on time. Mm-hmm. I interviewed Ben Flower. I interviewed Sean O'Loughlin on stage. Really good. More fans came, I think. There was more option at the bar. And it's slowly building year on year, game on game. And hopefully we're building something that was good. The one thing that I want to say about the fan village, though, was to the little lad who asked the question to Sean O'Loughlin. So I asked if fans wanted to ask a question. We'll limit it to two or three questions. A couple of fans asked really good questions about Morgan Smithies, about any pre-match routines. Good questions, standard questions, run of the mill, nothing offensive. Keep it like that. Thank you, everybody. Round of applause. Sean O'Loughlin, Ben Flower, off they go. Sean O'Loughlin points to a little lad. Says, "Oh, he wants to ask me a question." All right, Sean. You're the captain. hand the microphone over to the little lad, sternest face you can imagine on his face, and the video's on the Facebook page if anybody wants to see it, and said, "Why does Morgan Escaré not play?" The best question you could ever have asked, and because it came from like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old lad, he had to answer it. And to his credit, he gave a very diplomatic answer about Zach Hardisbeck and playing very well. I'm sure Morgan will get his opportunity. But yeah, that was for me. That was very, very good and very very funny in terms of a question from a little lad. Stuart says, "Did you enjoy the pint I bought you in the fan zone?" Yes, I did. Thank you, Stuart. Players don't stay long enough. Yeah, that's good feedback. I think that one of the downsides, I think, with players coming into the fan zone is they've got to go to about 6 or 7 places and answer 6 or 7 times the same questions that they're being asked. That is the hospitality sort of downside of trying to make money at the rugby club, I think. The good thing about that would be if we had more players injured, there'd be more players available to go into the hospitality in the fan zone. But then there's a downside to that, obviously. Yeah, not always a good thing, Matt. Right, Matt.
No, I think what we just need is different questions. We should have a competition. Who can come up with the most different question to ask a player?
Okay, that's a good. I'll see what game I'm doing next, and that's a good challenge.
I like the pre-match tradition question. Who was it who asked that?
It was
the woman who said she had the wee before every game.
Yeah, it was, and she's going to kill me for not remembering her name. It's a woman who's in the fan engagement board with me. But yeah, I've never heard jockstrap used in a sentence as many times as it was used in that sentence. It was, and the players didn't want to say jockstrap, but they kept saying she kept saying jockstrap to them. I'm not sure whether players still wear jockstraps, but I think I've broken the record now for jockstraps on a Facebook Live. Anyway, Matt, one of the benefits of this week is that Wigan are now away from home again. They've been back to the DW. They've had 2 games there, but they're now on the road. And what that means, Matt, is that we get to get this little sign back out, which you can't see. Macaulay's Guide to St Helens.
Yeah,
away you go.
Well, yeah, I've done proper research this week too, because I thought I let you down a bit last time. But before I actually get into it, I just want to say this. I know straight away that some St Helens fan is going to watch this at some point and say, "Oh, he's just biased because of the whole Wigan St Helens rivalry thing." Well, 2 things. Firstly, they started it. St Helens actually started the rivalry, and I've got evidence from way back. I've got evidence from 1849. Which was when the first Beecham's factory opened in St Helens for the production of Beecham's pills. And I've got these lovely posters to illustrate that. Apparently, these pills, they were advertised as dislodging bile, stirring up the liver, cure sick headaches, female ailments, that seems to be just a statement, and remove disease and promote good health. That's what they said about them. The reality is they were just really, really strong laxatives. And where did they first sell them? In Wigan. That's where the poor folk of Wigan never knew what hit them. It was the Great Wigan Bog Rush of 1849. And that is basically an act of war, isn't it? It's like brown rag to a bull. I mean, look at him there. Playing with his trumpet and his trousers. But even in spite of that, right, I want St Helens people to know that I'm being fair. I've done a proper bit of research. I'm going to be the bigger person here and do a really fair guide to St Helens. And I'm going to actually use the words of St Helens folk themselves. And now you've got to bear in mind, they think they're something special just because they make glass. But I can see right through that. And this is literally research from St Helens, from their own local newspaper, that asked the people of St Helens, what's so good about St Helens? And this is what they say. These are their actual answers. It's in England. It's a bit better than you think. That's what they said. And actually, you You could say that about literally anything, couldn't you, that's in England? Obviously, with the exception of Louis McCarthy Scarisbrooke. I mean, yeah, he's in England, but he's not better than you think. And they also said that St. Helens' main attractions are as follows: Taylor Park, Carmill Dam, the Museum of Road Transport, the World of Glass. Oh, quite frankly, with attractions like that, who needs foreplay ever? And here is a list of the things that they say that you need if you are going to enjoy a good day out in St. Helens. Sturdy footwear, a car, a bottle of water, fully charged phone with GPS, a first aid kit, small gas stove and some sausages, insect repellent. And I couldn't help think that with the addition of a machete, that is exactly the same list of things that you need in the event of a zombie apocalypse. And then I realised that actually, if you imagine a crossover between The Walking Dead and the Jeremy Kyle show, full of people hungry for flesh but without the teeth to actually eat it, if you can imagine that, then you have pretty much nailed St. Helens. And incidentally, Beecham's now provide excellent antibiotics that you might find useful if you ever do actually nail anything from St. Helens. But to be fair, as dangerous as St. Helens might sound, I was once happy to take my kids there. It was when they were kind of, troublesome teenagers. I actually took them into St. Helens town centre because I wanted to show them what people who refuse to get out of their pajamas really do look like. And within 10 minutes, both my kids had promised to always get dressed really quickly and never smoke roll-ups again. And it was a woman with the gold lame pajamas and the crimson lipstick and the suction mark love bites that really did the trick on them, because they'd never smelled death before. The only zombies they'd seen were on the Scooby-Doo thing. But if you really want to see badly animated, mindless corpses on your screen, that's what Red VTV's for, isn't it? So that is all the attractions of St. Helens, but I have saved the best till last, right? According to their own local newspaper, the number one top attraction in St. Helens is the Totally Wicked rugby stadium. Well, of course it is. I mean, anywhere that is built on a solid foundation of pure Wigan shirts has got to be the best thing about the town. So if you are going there, enjoy, don't get bitten.
Matt, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll leave you on that bombshell of that guide to St. Helens, and we'll catch you all next week when we're going to beat in the league leaders.